All right, here we are on the second video on base coating a skeleton miniature. This one is, I'm picking some different colors and different approaches. So please continue watching if you want to read more about the 5 techniques that I think all miniature painters, beginner miniature painters, should learn, practice, and know. Go to zorgamegeek.com/5. All right, here's the second base coating video.
Then we're going to grab the graveyard bone. I'm going to try to get away with using less paint in the palette. Kind of forgot to pre-shake my paint bottles before doing this. So now we're going to get the excess paint, clean it out of my brush. There we go, looks pretty clean on my paper towel. We're going to mix some of that water in. While most of these paints, again, are probably thin enough, having just a little bit more water helps them flow better. So this is graveyard bone, which, as you can see, is less yellowed than the yellowed bone of the other miniature. We're going to paint the same areas. Now normally I would paint all 3 of these with the same base coat because they are a set, presumably the same age of skeleton coming out of the same ground, and therefore would not have significant color differences. But because this is a tutorial on base coating and color selection, we are showing those variations. Just realize that I may have not, yep, as you can see there, I did not get that area, so luckily I still have this paint over here in my palette. The same is true up here in the knotty bits of the pelvis. And also on the underneath side, that is the downside of those handles, is sometimes it causes you to miss certain areas. So just checking for that. Base of the skull back here. All right, here we go. Clean the brush back off. Paint. Now, going to make sure I don't repeat that same mistake. I'm going to go ahead and get underneath here. Keep on bumping. No earthquakes, just poor placement of this arm, but that will be a problem for a different day. As you can see, I'm not being super precise or careful here. I'm just getting the paint down because this is a base coat. We get to the brown of the bow and the leather of the quiver and straps, then I will use a smaller brush and try to be a little bit more precise. But again, it's a skeleton. It's okay if it's not show quality. There's no real precise order here to what I'm painting besides, like I said earlier, start from the core, work your way out. But if you jump around too much, then you may miss areas. Oops. Well, it's not an oops. I just painted over the leather strap. That's okay. This is a lighter color, so I'm not going to have too many coverage issues when I paint it over with the oiled leather. So off camera. I also haven't decided if I'm going to paint the fletchings. I probably will, but I don't know what color yet. I lean towards red because I like the color red and other bright colors. Okay, looks like that lower jaw and the face may need a little bit of a touch up here. Sometimes with a little bit of glare from the window, it's hard to see if I missed a white spot or if it's just glare. Oops. Top of the hand, top of this arm. Okay, I think that is it. I'm going to come over here to my graveyard bone. And the Umber Wash. This is Game Wash by Vallejo. Oh, sorry, not that. No, I'm not washing. I'm base coating. So I prefer the dropper bottles because they're easier to add water to. and you're less wasteful than these paint pots, where if you're pouring them out, you tend to always pour out too much paint. So instead, I just come out of the cap here. Okay, so we're gonna move that. Actually, we'll move that cap over there. So again, it's my first stroke, so I want to be away from the precise areas because I want to see how the flow is, and it looks pretty good. You can see this is a much redder brown than the walnut. My paint there was a little too thin as I was getting it off, and we were getting higher up into the brush, and it was not covering as well. You can kind of see there where the white's peeking through. That's a sign of poor coverage. But it also provides some interesting marbling effects. However, I think I'm gonna have to let this dry. I'm gonna come back in for a second coat. But that's what poor coverage means, is the underlying color peeks through in an irregular fashion, and that is a sign that your paint is either too light compared to what's underneath, or you've thinned it too much and it's essentially turned into a wash. As the level of pigment goes down. So again, I'm going to come in here and get this area by the leg. Now this, because it's kind of this reddish brown, I'm trying to be much more careful than with that dark walnut to not overpaint and hit the bone next to it. Then we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so now we're going to come in back here. Ooh, wow, look at that. I really overpainted the back of that hand. So this is my graveyard bone. So luckily, I still have some of this here in my palette. It's a little crusty on top. So I'm going to go ahead and load up my brush a little bit. My brush is a little too wet. So I'm gonna get some of that dried up paint, get some of it off on my paper towel over here. Because it's too wet, so you can see that it's not really covering. Okay, so I got that recovered. So now we're going to come back up here. Sorry, off camera. I got some more issues down there. So I'm going to finish getting this brush, this bow painted. And then I'm going to get some of these hand issues around the bow. Right, getting that brush, or that bow, brushed out, and then while I still have brown paint, this brownish red paint, I'm going to come in and try to get the shafts here. See, I got a little mark there on the quiver, but I'm going to leave that. I'm going to be brushing over that with the brown or with the oiled leather, and these two colors are actually pretty similar. Okay, so now I got to fix up that little piece there on the hand. So I got to load my brush up with a little bit of paint as I come in here. Brush is a little too wet. It's a little messy. That's okay, because it's a skeleton. Looking for coverage issues as it's drying. It's actually not too bad. Some of that's going to get fixed up here as I do the wash. So we're going to do the oiled leather here for the oiled leather. Now this one I'm going to have a bit more because I'm going to be using this across all three of the miniatures. So let's see here. I'm actually going to start with my graveyard bone because my yellowed bone there is still drying a bit, as I then clean my brush. Oops, I keep on bumping this. Okay, so this is, frankly, some of these straps on the across the arm here and underneath. I don't know that it's strictly necessary that you paint those as your first time now, or at least paint them a different color. You could just paint the quiver. However, I left those unpainted. It's most obviously you didn't paint them here on the back, but I think it is forgivable for a Mook minion type of skeleton to not worry about painting. And I'm still using my number 20 Toray brush, which may be a little indelicate for what I'm doing here, but and I'm just trying to get the top of the straps. I'm not trying to get the sides or anything like that, just getting that sense of surface color. Okay, trying to find the best angle in off camera. I need a little bit more paint on the brush. And I'm just dipping the smallest amount of paint So then for the quiver, I always like to work the fine details first and then color in from there, or the edges, I should say. Then we're going to come back over in here. Trying to get that little white spot. Okay. Unfortunately, there I can kind of see where I was a little too precise with my bone color. I have this nice white line on the edge of this strap. So that means I gotta paint that in a little bit. The back side of that is less important because that's going to be a hide shade area. And I need to paint a little bit more. Oh, brush is a little dry. Okay, so that is that for the oiled leather on that one. And then we have this guy, which couple of spots here where coverage could be a bit better. So we're just doing some touch-ups. As you can see, also this is the bloodstone brown, and it is really close to that oiled leather in terms of color.
There's the end of the second base coating video. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below. And if you want to read more about the 5 techniques that I think all beginning miniature painters should know, learn, and practice, go to zorgamegeek.com/5. That's zorgamegeek.com/5. And until next time, keep gaming and keep painting.